It looks like they're figuring out the slides still.
Oh, okay. Well, Zaki needs no introduction, but you can tell from his shirt he's a Agoric OG. And I'm Dean Tribble. I'm CEO of Agoric. We can talk a little bit before the slides get here, but they'll show up. Interprotocol is a stable token being built on the Agoric platform. I'm CEO of Agoric, but Interprotocol is a use case of the Agoric platform. Agoric platform is, of course, smart contracts and hardened JavaScript with a pluggable, composable library of components. Aha, I see slides. Inter is built out of those, but it has taken a life of its own, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go here. So, any more intro?
Yeah, I mean, Inter has been one of the many things that I work on, but it is, I think, one of the higher stakes things in Cosmos. We have been, I think, hearing a lot today, just at the context conversation about, the need for a Cosmos native stablecoin to really power Cosmos DeFi. And I think a lot of my, ultimately I found myself right in the center of a lot of this work to bring the right to bring that stablecoin ecosystem, just in the same way that I was talking about, we need to change Atom's issuance, build liquid staking to unleash Cosmos DeFi. The same thing is we need a stablecoin ecosystem that is as good as / better than anywhere else in the multi-chain world in order to really unleash the power of Cosmos DeFi.
Cool. Yeah, so some of the basics first, right? Over-collateralized, not algorithmic. Fully collateralized so that it is really a focus that it is solvent, robust, reliable, something you can use and count on across the Cosmos ecosystem. And talking about Agoric versus Inter, from Agoric's point of view, it's the fee token, and it just has to be stable, right? It's just got to be the case that running something tomorrow versus running it the next day is, costs the same, that your rent doesn't change from day to day depending on the market. But from the community point of view that needs a stable token, their dollar parity is really useful, it's really valuable, it's really important, and so we have many mechanisms that really focus on making sure that we get strong parity with the dollar.
Yeah, I would just say that the other pieces of this that are very important are that it is fundamentally, it is like a demonstration of everything that we expect to see from Agoric in terms of DeFi. The capability to implement governance and seamlessly weave it into a contract, the ability to use all of the sort of component-based frameworks that is what we think is the core differentiator of the Agoric platform are all fully interwoven. It is also a demonstration of sort of that all of the sort of integration, like end-to-end user experience of the Agoric platform is healthy, working, operational in the launch of IST.
Let's talk about those launch things. Actually, yes. Thank you. See? OG. This was a diagram that actually Zaki and I talked to at the Gateway conference in Prague, and various people have picked it up and done, much prettier versions. But on the engineering side, our diagram works. We're going to finish engineering to it, and so it was fun to show it. But let's go to the next slide, which is, did I hit a button that turned this off? Oh, no, they get to control it. Excellent. Let's go to so we're just going to be releasing a narrow part of it, so I'm going to talk about that first. So this is the Parity stability module. And Zaki, you noted earlier that this is sort of the first time launching a stable token where, the parity maintenance it comes before leverage, right? Go ahead.
Well, so, the parity, as far as I know, we are Inter is the first stablecoin protocol launching within Cosmos that has a parity stability module. We also think that is it's a differentiator. It represents sort of a deeper there are many trade-offs in terms of complexity and all of this stuff. But one of the two things that we're trying to show off very particularly in Inter is one is the ability to have the composition of multiple ways of minting Inter, and two, the fact that we can manage all of these sort of complex governance questions so that we can have we can manage things like bridge risk and all of this stuff, but we're starting out with this parity stability module, mostly because also it doesn't have as complex dependencies as vaults do, though vaults will be coming soon.
Right. So parity stability module is essentially, you know, it's slightly more general than this, but it's essentially take an existing reference stable token that has a strong parity with the dollar. So USDC, USDT, DAI are sort of the three obvious ones, on Paxos, right? Those are the four obvious ones, right? And trade them, you know, basically trade them one-to-one for newly minted IST. So why is this good? Well, first, in the Cosmos ecosystem, you know, USDC...
And you can trade them back.
And you can trade them back, yes. This is not one way. This is about, you know, greasing the wheels of commerce, right? You know, really making this work, right? So you can trade them back and forth, where because of the way interchain architecture just works fundamentally, you may be getting these through different bridges or through different paths, right? So USDC via Axelar, USDC via Gravity, you know, USDT via OKX or Injective, DAI through these various paths, etc. And normal users don't want to encounter that. What they want is a thing they can spend, a thing they can use for their DeFi and so forth. And so this consolidates those in a way where you can bring up to certain minting limits through these various pathways to get just the one IST that you use for easier interchain commerce. And this is one of the key elements back to that pluggable thing that Zaki was talking about, is what you really want out of a stable token is, or sort of the best source of minting the stable token is to have all the high quality, solvent, robust mechanisms work together so you can mint IST from these different sources. So the PSM is just the first one of these, but it already is able to leverage all of the existing stable tokens and round them up so that chains can just, you know, like a chain with options can just consolidate into and clear and settle in one token, and then people can pull it out and take it to, you know, DAI or USDC or whatever it is.
So, you know, based on the decisions of the build holder community, the builder community are going to be able to, you know, decide both on this question, and like they will get feedback from the economic committee that has just been elected. That is going to be, so there'll be this feedback loop of, hey, we can take any, you know, dollar targeted asset that is available within the interchain from bridges, from native Cosmos chains, and we can, in a risk-managed way, bring them all into, and like sort of refungibilize them into IST.
Say that 5 times fast, yes. The refungibilizer, yeah, right. So there's the reward pool on here is an important part of the ecosystem, is an important part of making this work. All of these mechanisms produce some rewards, but in fact, and, you know, here it's just listed so that if you go spelunking into the code and it's all open source, you'll see the reward pool, but the rewards are expected to be at 0 for the one-to-one trading of all of these nice reference tokens. So this is not, you know, the goal of IST is to, enable commerce, right? It's to enable interchain commerce where, as I say, you want to build an economy, you need to, you know, we learned thousands of years ago that having a stable token for that economy really helps it flourish. And so that's the goal here, and we win by getting a larger economy. The other piece that's not shown here, and we'll talk a little bit about it when we get to the questions, and I should note, there's a bunch of questions we've collected over the last couple of days, and so we're going to dig into those in a minute. But the other piece is the governance piece that sets the minting limits for each of these channels, so that if there is a bridge that people want to use, but it's got high bridge risk, or it has slow redemption or what have you, then it might get a lower minting threshold that the other IST holders are going to want to put less risk on that particular channel. So much of the ability to integrate multiple ways of minting IST comes from being able to place minting limitations and manage the risk of these different mechanisms, so we can include them early and grow the overall ecosystem as each mechanism becomes more well established, more historical, you know, assurance that it works and so forth. Okay, so some of the launch questions. Some of these are easy, and we've talked about them before. What's the relation between Agoric and interprotocol? Agoric, Agoric OpCo is a company that builds software. We knew we were building an economy where you could rapidly deploy applications, and as I said, an economy needs something like a currency to function. So we knew that would be a good idea. We require stability, so that prices are stable. But that's all we require for users to be able to deploy in a stable economy. But then IST grew into something that was clearly going to be valuable for the interchain, clearly be something that, if it was broadly available, would be much more valuable to everyone else, and it could take advantage of the Agoric mechanisms.
One of the things that's very unique about the Agoric community is that it is not just software engineers, it's software engineers and economists. Is like when I think of, when you sort of look at the groups of people who have been attracted to the Agoric project over the decades in which this has been forming, one of the things that's really unique is that you're not just interacting with with people who are let's build this from a software engineering point of view. Let's really think of the system holistically from an economic point of view, which has help nucleate the entire formation of what is that stability, what is the software component that will fulfill that requirement for stability for the Agoric smart contract platform to survive and thrive and build and be the most attractive place to build new applications and run new applications. But it's also a key component of having that sort of foundation with economists. Helping inform the system has helped us make something that I think will be a really great product for the whole interchain ecosystem.
Hear, hear. And the word Agoric, by the way, comes from the Greek word agora, which was the open marketplace. So this was always inspired by sort of marketplaces and economics. Will the launch of IST be live or on testnet? So it's been on testnet for a while, getting economists, in fact, at George Mason University beating on it, economists at RMIT and so forth. But this is about the live launch is what we're talking about. The live launch is kind of in progress. And indeed, assuming, the release candidate for the Agoric platform and all of its stack, and then on top of it, the code stack for the Parity stability module launch. All of that is now going through testing and could be as soon as third week of October. That's the target. Security people, if they say no, then we fix it and it'll move out. And I will unashamedly make sure that we ship when it's ready. But goal right now is late October, so very close. Can I stake build to receive future IST rewards? This is the last launch one, I think. So the answer is absolutely. The architecture for Agoric, and this was, IST is really intrinsic to how the Agoric stack works, is right now you have build, you stake build, you get sort of the usual kind of build new issuance, but that will taper down over the course of 3 years as the reward for in IST goes up. Right, and so that's sort of a fundamental mechanism is we want the rewards for staking to grow with the size of the economy, and our economists inform us that as the economy grows, so does the amount of IST in circulation, and so some teeny little trickle into rewarding the people operating this network and staking and securing it, will turn into what is the IST rewards for build staking. And that's something that, amounts and all of that is determined by governance, and I'm just one of many folks in the ecosystem that are participating in that. Let's see. What mechanism keeps interprotocol stable?
So I think the best way to think about it is, again, it's this. So the mental model is a new mechanism is conceived, implemented in software, etc. It is offered to the governance of the Agoric blockchain as, hey, this is a new component that can be integrated into the interprotocol. And then there is this idea of having a debt limit that is a very compelling thing, especially in the context of all of the security and isolation that Agoric offers, where we are that sort of comes with the platform, where you're able to say, hey, only this mechanism can only mint $1 million or $5 million or 5 million ISTs, 10 million IST, and slowly ramp it up for that particular mechanism. So we start out with the Parity stability module the Parity Stability Module, you pick some set of tokens, bridge tokens, etc., and say those Parity Stability Module tokens can mint IST. When vaults and liquidations and all of that component, all of those components are ready and those can all be deployed together, then again, governance will set some sort of limit of how much IST can be minted through that mechanism. And that will become then, and that can slowly be increased, and that can be increased over time. And then we keep adding new mechanisms. And the goal is to have rigorous economic analysis of the fact that that mechanism is secure. And as long as the debt limit start out small for every new mechanism, also you don't necessarily have to worry too much about the coupling of these two mechanisms. Now, as you sort of scale the debt limit, you do have to be more aware of the fact that maybe you have introduced economic interdependency between multiple mechanisms, and there are risks there. But the way to manage those risks are, again, rigorous economic analysis and slowly scaling debt limits.
And some of that, some of that is deliberate, right? The stability for the PSM, part of the reason we roll out with that initially is that means people can bring in, assets to get IST out there everywhere, and we can focus on that first. But when vaults launch, and actually, let me see, how many people are familiar with CDP or vaults in MakerDAO? Comdex was talking about this, this whole idea of over-collateralized loans. I always use the analogy of houses where I've got a house that's worth, $100,000. I borrow $50,000 against it. If the value of the house goes down, then it, the bank goes through, in the case of houses, painful processes to do liquidation. But it's that you can against an asset that is volatile, you can borrow less than it's worth as long as you can sell the asset in time to cover the loan. And with tokens, that's easy. You have these liquidation processes to take a vault full of Atom and liquidate it if someone was really, was minting too much IST against it. And so that liquidation process, we have contracts for that are not required for PSM, because PSM is just stable, is stable to $1, has parity to $1, because it's relying on USDC, USDT, DAI, et cetera, existing mechanisms. But vaults, they will be liquidated using oracles that are pricing them to the dollar, and then they can be very tightly liquidated because people can bring in USDC, convert it to IST, buy out the liquidation. And so PSM in there first, the Parity Stability Module in there first, will make it so that once the liquidation processes happen, they can be very efficient. Let's see.
Damn straight.
How are new assets added to Mint IST? Well, you just talked about the new mechanisms added, and that's much of the architecture. So let's say a little bit about governance. One of the things, it was actually elected on-chain, was a approval of an economic committee for IST. Now, IST, started as we need this for the Agoric chain, but it quickly grew into, and I like to, Sunny, if you're, Sunny Agoric is so enthusiastic. The last Cosmoverse, when I was describing, it was not called IST at the time, but when I was describing IST, where you could bring Atom collateral over the interchain, it's IBC native, you could then mint IST and take it back to Osmosis. He was like, oh my God, we've needed a Atom-backed stablecoin for so long, I'm so excited, let's go do this, right? And so that made us realize how important IST would be to the interchain, because it's not just that you have a stable token to grease the wheels of commerce, but you get to unlock the asset value that's in the interchain. Right now, the 10 billion plus dollars locked up in Atom and Osmo and Juno and so forth, and so that's what's, that's the reason why having a native token to the interchain is such a big deal, because not only can you use the dollar-backed stuff, which is a source of minting a stable token, but you can also use token-backed stuff, and that's just sort of critical. So the way that will happen is one of the first jobs of the Economic Committee is to define a process by which people can propose new types of collateral for the vaults, which are not in this release, but will be in future releases. For vaults, so, Atom is fabulous because it is easily tradable in many locations. As others become more tradable, it becomes easier to have them be used more as collateral. If they are not very tradable, then expect the minting limits for those to be lower, and that's what the Economic Committee's job is to do. Additionally, Gauntlet, if you're familiar with them, they do ongoing economic analysis of live chains for Aave and various other places. They will be running that against the Agoric, the IST contracts to similarly give recommendations on liquidation thresholds in order to, again, this focus on ensuring solvency, ensuring robustness economically for the chain. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think what is important to recognize is, I think a lot of people in Cosmos are not super familiar with the maker mechanism, are not super familiar with like this idea of being able to take out essentially a loan against any of your assets. With the sort of Atom 2.0 vision, we're really trying to open up the entire essentially Atom supply through liquid staking to these kinds of use cases. And I think this is it's a great example of the power of the system. But like also the other thing is that the maker like collateral onboarding committee has, I think, like been one of the shining examples of prudence in the blockchain space for the last 5 years. And I think we aspire to equal and surpass that.
Yep, yep. And so the economic committee, actually, I'll let's see. Oh, I was gonna. Yes, these are features at launch, but we can skip that. There's a UI. We can come back to that if we get there. So yeah, are there plans to expand the economic committee? I thought there was an economic committee. So the economic committee is not a Congress, it's not elected representatives. It is a team of experts that have expertise around economic planning, around currency, around risk management of financials. So it includes, distinguished professor of economics out of RMIT, Jason Potts. It includes Yusuf Amrani around here, who worked on the Atom 2.0 document. It includes Chloe White, who's been an expert to governments and large-scale chains and banks and so forth on currency discipline, on smart contracts, on blockchain in general. So it's got a broad range of experts that fill in, the expertise from currency to economics to public policy and that kind of thing. And that's, that's a broad international committee that will now be regularly meeting to work on this stuff. People will be able to get added to that by the committee. The committee is approved by the Agoric build holders, the stake build, but it's intended to be a team. It's not, you don't want to be putting up every change in a parameter value up to vote of a bunch of people that haven't been paying attention to what would make the system economically sound. What you want, like with shareholders, you want to elect people that are really going to focus on that are expert at it, and that will do a good job and will be accountable to the community about how good a job they've done. And so people who are interested in that should start participating, and you'll naturally get come to their attention and interact with them and bring value to the committee. So let's see. Will recent U.S. regulatory discussions affect IST? So the answer is almost certainly. The different mechanisms will interact differently with these regulations, right? The PSM mechanism is pretty straightforward. The mechanism to once there is IST rewards to stake build holders, to be able to mint IST against that, that's one of the ones that we would expect to launch, next year at the earliest. And that's one that, for example, might be affected. And if so, we'll change it in order to make sure that IST is, robust for the interchain and for its broader use across all these different zones out there. How does IST work with USDC in the future?
So, I think one of the things that I think is so we think that USDC is going to be a very important asset in Cosmos. It is what DYDX plans to use as their collateral asset. We think that it's going to be a very important asset in the future. I kind of imagine, and we also, OKX has launched Tether natively into the IBC network as well, launched from their chain. So we have we have the major stablecoins are becoming more and more engaged in the Cosmos ecosystem, which is really good for DeFi across the ecosystem. We think that IST becomes like in the Ethereum DeFi economy, the triumvirate is really DAI, USDC, Tether. What we imagine a future on Cosmos where it is Tether, USDC, IST.
Yep. Yeah, and for many of these, I mean, having bridged USDC is something where even if, for example, in the future we had native USDC or native Paxos or native, whatever BUSD, whatever, those are great for whales. Those are great for structured arrangements. But if someone has assets over on ETH that they suddenly want to bring them over into the Cosmoverse and spend them on cool contracts running in Evmos, Juno, Osmosis, Agoric, wherever, right? Being able to bring those over. They aren't going to, I mean, there's no reason to go to the native token. They can bring bridged USDC. Those bridges will still have a life. I can, bring $1,000, come over, buy an NFT, and then take it back over a bridge to Ethereum, right? And so this is the kind of thing that it will have a continuing life. It will especially have a continuing life because by having IST be generally pervasive, being able to, have these continuing sources of USDC won't be an ongoing burden to every chain where it's got, 16 different currencies it's got to juggle between. It's easy to consolidate them into this IST. So, how does Atom 2.0 and IST work together?
This is a fun topic.
That's one question that I didn't have at the beginning of this conference, right?
So we talked about it. So first I hinted at this whole thing, whereas like the Atom 2.0 vision, the embrace of liquid staking, the kind of leverage loops that Comdex was talking about right before this, those are very much part of the Atom 2.0 vision. But like one of the other things I really want to trigger people's imaginations about is like how the allocator module that's proposed in the Atom 2.0 white paper could actually play and interact with IST, right? So IST is adding value to the Cosmos ecosystem. It's adding value to atoms through the vault mechanism. It is like clearly it can be a huge driver of value and utility across the IBC ecosystem and in the sort of atom economic zone. So it seems really important to have some sort of partnership between the Agoric chain and IST and the IST protocol and Atom. We've experimented, one of the things you see in these sort of partnerships right now is, on Osmosis, you have this like sort of matching liquidity incentives, and that's going to be part of the IST story. But the allocator module actually creates a world in which the liquidity in external dexes can actually be held in the Atom treasury. That is really the vision of like what kind of use cases we imagine with the Atom 2.0 model is a partnership with the inner protocol where the Atom is where we're actually directing sort of Atom towards purchasing Atom IST LP shares, and Atom becoming the Cosmos Hub itself becoming a long-term liquidity provider into Atom IST pairs, sort of creating like a closed feedback loop where IST is improving the utility of Atom and Atom is improving the liquidity of IST.
That'll be great. And just as I say, the tradability of Atom and then the future tradability of Atom staking derivatives is going to be really helpful. So let's see what else we got.
We got a minute left.
We got a minute left. What's the IST roadmap? Well, okay, so let me jump back to this previous slide. So launching, as I said, in October, that one will provide the high-quality stable tokens, simplify getting IST, and really the goal after that lets us focus on the integration. It's integrated with our wallet, but getting it integrated with Osmosis and Injective and all these other platforms is just the big focus to get this rolled out. Then we will be rolling out and, as approved by the community, releasing the additional mechanisms like vaults, like the reserve, like liquidation on the AMM or liquidation over to other chains, etc. So those are the things that are coming. We have 30 seconds for one question. No. So please, if you're interested in this, join the community. If you're a zone, we've got Agoric has a booth there, or connect with us online to talk about how to get IST over onto your platform. You can talk to him or bring up incentives. Anything like
Yeah, we are the DCF, the Decentralized Cooperation Foundation, does intend to support the IST launch with liquidity incentives from the DCF Treasury across a variety of dexes in the interchain.
Yep. Yes, broad usage and broad availability because cash works if it's handy and easy to use. So that'll be our goal. And feedback and input is quite welcome. So thank you all for your attention. Thank you all for your time. And we'll see you on the interchain.